Hey guys, welcome to the show. This is the very first episode of Adapt or Die, and I get to be here with Carey. Carey was actually in Vermont, so we got to hang out in Vermont, get to know each other a little bit. There's a really crazy story that you'll have to stick around to hear kind of towards the middle of this episode that I think you're going to love that we're going to ask Carey about. But his story naturally connects to the central idea of what we're doing at Adapt or Die. It's a life. His life forced to change, responded with discipline, and eventually redesigned his work around what mattered most. Change doesn't ask for permission. Sometimes it arrives through technology, sometimes through business, sometimes through a moment of change in your entire life. So welcome to the Adapt or Die podcast about choices, tools, transformations, helping entrepreneurs and leaders thrive in a world that refuses to stand still. I'm your host, Brad Parnell. Today's guest is Carey Rouse, founder of Velo Escapes, where he creates founder-led group cycling trips through some of the world's best riding destination and rides every mile alongside his guests. But Carey's story is much more than just about cycling, so I will shut up and we're just going to jump straight in. So Carey, welcome to Adapt or Die.
Brad, thanks for having me. I had a great time meeting you and several others at the first Adapt or Die Summit. So that was awesome. And getting to hear about and to see your video on the 100-mile run on the trail was pretty awesome. So that was cool. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah, it's so fun. I think we're cut from the same cloth. We'll kind of get to some of your big adventures, but you shared your video of you doing this adventure across the country. And it's fun to just capture those moments, right? To remember them and to document those.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was hard, but I know, AI is difficult and hard for a lot of people, confusing, scary, a lot of fear mongering and things like that going on. And a lot of the stuff, you just got to get in there and do it, and get familiar with it.
100%. You can't get results without action, right?
Yeah.
And usually it's that uncomfortable action that nobody wants to take, but anyone that's gotten anywhere in life has taken consistent, uncomfortable steps.
Yeah.
To figure it out. So hey, before we talk about Velo Escapes, can you take us back to the moment when you learned you had congestive heart failure?
Yeah.
And specifically, like, what happened and what was going through your mind?
Yeah. So it was in 2015. So I was, 40 something, I don't know, whatever that was, 43. And I just out downtown here in Austin with a lot of friends and enjoying the night. And it was Memorial Day weekend. And I came home and I felt a little under the weather and enough to where I didn't really feel like going to work, which was not normal for me, but I was bad enough that I was like, I'll stay home from work. And it just got worse and worse, these flu-like conditions. And I just felt these horrible body aches. And then I went to the doctor like 3 different times over that week, still unable to go to work. And they kept on giving me antibiotics, which are just like ripping my stomach up. And it's not the solution. No one knew for sure what it was, but it was just at that point, pain, achiness, and flu-like conditions. And it got so bad where I just refused to move because it just hurt. Like there's no relief from it. I wasn't sleeping. And so this went on for almost 6 to 7 days and I wasn't sleeping, which was just making it, I was just wandering, in my mind and my body around, I couldn't figure anything out. And then about, 3:30 in the morning one night, I turned to my wife at the time and I said, we've got to go to the emergency room. I don't know what's going on. And the pain the worst pain was like, it felt like this meat hook had just like lifted me off the ground. And that's what I was feeling. It was like being lifted right here. And you can't relieve it. You're just hanging there. That's the pain I felt. And I went in, they did it. And then just the drive there was horrible. It wasn't even that far, like a mile. I thought I was going to die just from the ride. And we got there, got down, they got an EKG. And then like, as soon as the EKG happened, I had doctors and nurses everywhere, all over me, because it was a heart situation and it was not good. So the definition of congestive heart failure is your blood ejects a certain fraction of blood every time it pumps. And when it goes below a certain percentage of the volume of the heart, that is defined congestive heart failure. I actually don't know where the number is, but when it goes below that number, that's what it is. And so it was really low. And so they did a bunch of tests. They said, yeah, your arteries are completely clean and everything. And ultimately, they had to put me on some medicine. I was in the ICU for a week, and they kind of just keep you right on this line. Like, you had to keep your blood pressure as low as possible. So, but not so low that you die, but low enough that it protects your heart as best it can. So they just kept me there for about a week to let me get back to normal. And finally, out of the ICU, I was in a regular hospital room for maybe a week or so after that. And they said it was a virus. And they said, well, I was like, well, what virus was it? Because I don't want to get that virus again. And they said,
Virus that caused congestive heart failure?
yeah. And I said, well, what virus? What happens if I get it again? He said, well, you'll probably get the sniffles, and that's it. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, there's a lot of things we don't understand. And we only can't even tell you exactly what virus. It was just a family of a virus that you got. And sometimes viruses attack other parts of your body, and it attacked my heart. And along with, a lot of other things, but it attacked my heart. And so I was lucky and I was unlucky. Unlucky that it attacked my heart, and that, for any other time, even if I got the same virus again, it may not do anything to me, or at least they can't explain it. Lucky that at that time, I was in really good shape. Like, I was riding my bike like crazy. I was lifting all the time. And the doctor said, had you not been in the shape you were in, you probably wouldn't have lived.
Wow. So the virus that could cause sniffles or death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So you were already you were already in great shape. That
Yeah.
basically saved your life. And then were you also, because we're going to get to, kind of the theme of adapt or die, like the adaptation of some of the things that you took from there and even in business and how you've changed and molded and adapted to your life you have now. Was that when you were still in corporate,
Yeah.
managing complex projects?
I was still in corporate then, doing, large complex projects and managing those things. And, having that happen, it wasn't a wake up call to where, hey, I was really out of shape and I wanted to get into shape, but it was a reaffirmation that I need to double down on what I've been doing in terms of fitness. And then, of course, that helped with some revelations for myself in terms of, what do I, what do I really want to do? What really makes me happy? And it wasn't like this paycheck or these promotions or a new role or something like that you'd stick around for but may never get. What do I like to do with my time as a human being? And it wasn't working on these projects that meant nothing to me. Fitness was something that meant something to me. Actually, racing cars means a lot to me, although that's really expensive. So there's only so much of that I could do.
More expensive than cycling, huh? Although cycling can be pretty costly, but I guess it's all
I'm
relative.
telling you, I was in the cheapest form of racing, and it's $4,000 or $5,000 a weekend, and that's if nothing bad happens. If you roll a car, like I've done, then it could be more than that. So,
Wow, wow, that puts things into perspective.
yeah, but yeah, two passions of mine for sure. But fitness, it's been a part of my life for a long time, and it just is becoming more and more prevalent, and it's just something that I can't let go of, and it's really defines me. So
That's incredible. So walk us through the journey of how you took this passion of yours. And my other question too is, after you got back from the hospital, so a few weeks in the hospital, you said about what, 2 weeks in ICU and maybe a week in another hospital. Was that the beginning of your journey to get out and transition into this new career path, or had that seed already been planted and you already started taking some steps?
I don't know if I can't tell you exactly when the seed was planted. To be honest with you, I was reading some books at the time, and it kind of got me excited about trying to do my own thing. And I'd wanted to do that for a while, but just hadn't taken the steps to do it. But it was definitely after that event when sometimes it isn't like a light switch, right? Sometimes it's a little bit of a stimulus over time where you realize, what am I doing? What am I doing here? And that was definitely one of the stimulus that I had received, and it was after that. So yeah, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Like my piece of advice for people, and you hear this a little bit about trying to follow your passion, to do something you're passionate with. Be careful that you're not doing something tertiary to your passion as opposed to doing your passion. And the reason, if I think about that, I think about things like, maybe like I'll say personal training, because I've done that before. I've had a personal training business. And the problem is I'm not training. I'm not training. It's not my fitness. And so I found out that I wasn't necessarily passionate about counting somebody else's reps. So what I'm passionate about is pushing myself, finding out where the limits are, going those limits, pushing a little further. And that wasn't happening at all with, do the personal training thing. So I've tried different businesses over time. And as most startups are, they don't work for a multitude of different reasons.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what I wasn't really doing is I wasn't really in.
Yeah. So interesting. So you enjoyed the outcome of personal training for yourself, but not necessarily doing the personal training. And now you've created this career where it sounds like you get to do both. So you get to do something that you love and do it alongside other people.
Yeah.
So you're pushing them, giving them life-changing experiences and getting to enjoy that right next to them, but maybe being the guide, but not just being the trainer. Here's how you do it. You get to do it alongside of them. So that's got to be satisfy and check a multiple number of boxes in your life, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's allowing me to stick with this for the long haul, because sometimes, there's a lot of tedious things that you've got to do to make something successful. You've got to stay consistent with it. It's really hard to stay consistent unless you're really enjoying the journey and getting to do helping other people while literally doing what I'm passionate about has really been the key for me with this. And so I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I promised at the beginning, so I'm going to tee you up for this story.
Okay.
One of my favorite things, we were at dinner and in Vermont, and you were telling me about this amazing bike ride. So I'm from Texas too. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth. You're in Austin. And you told me about, I'm not going to give it away, but an extremely ambitious bike ride to deliver something special to someone special. So I would love for you to share that story. But right before you do that, and we can make this part brief, what was that transition like when you went from corporate, I'm sure probably like a cushy type job with good benefits, walking out of that to do something in the fitness space and something that you felt called to do? Walk us through briefly what that transition looked like, and then we'll jump to that story.
Sure. So one thing I would tell people, and this would help me with that transition, is you've got to simplify things in your life. And you have so many things in your life that you just don't need. And you're paying for them. And so when I really took an inventory of what is it I'm really paying for? What is it that I own that I really don't need to own, that I need to simplify, reduce costs and things like that to focus on what I really want? That allowed me to really understand what kind of runway you give yourself. And understanding what your runway is. When are you going to run out of money, right? When you have no other choices. I was like, wow, that is a lot more than I thought, right? And if you really look at it this way, that made the transition easier for me. So I could take on some, challenges, and I was like, what is the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is I put everything into this for a certain amount of time and it doesn't work out. I know what the runway is. So go back to doing what I was doing for a while. If I had to, is that really that bad? Your alternative is to just continue doing that now. So at least you've taken the chance. So for me, it was a matter of understanding where the runway was. There were times where I tried something, it didn't work out, and I had to go back. And my last full-time job was exactly that. I had to go back. Okay, so I did that. And then I realized I built up another runway, and I was like, I'm going to do this again. And I took another step out, and I'm currently in that process right now. I'm on a runway until I make this work. So what's the worst case scenario? I love that. I think it's so important. And this kind of even goes back to that theme of, adapt or die. You are able to continuously adapt to get to where you're at now, right? It's like, hey, we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, we're going to adapt and go back. We're going to adapt and go over here. And I think that's a really important thing to listen to if you're listening to this and maybe you're thinking about going off on your own,
or another entrepreneurial journey, it's okay to fail. Carey is still alive and thriving, but that wasn't just a linear path of 1, 2, 3, right? It was ping pong. It's like back and forth and change and adapt and try and fail and try again and get a little better. So not being afraid to go out there and knowing, hey, worst case scenario is, you're probably not going to die and you're going to be okay. But I think we take our ceilings and usually make them way lower and scare ourselves out of doing those challenging things. So great point there. That's a great story.
Thanks. Yeah. Like I said, the closest to dying had nothing to do with me adapting to trying to do something new. The
There you
closest
go.
death I've ever been was from a virus completely out of your control. And that's
Yeah.
what you got to think about too. There's going to be things in your life that could literally take your life.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah.
Live your life, right? Try some things. This life is worth living. Do it.
Amen. Well said. Well said. Okay. Tell us the story. The
So
famous bike ride.
I've written a couple books, which is something else I wanted to do, kind of a bucket list thing. And I wrote a book called Find Meaning Through Relentless Discipline. And it really just started off as I wanted to tell my story about my life. And then some themes started coming out of that as I was putting all this together. And I realized, well, there's actually probably some lessons in there. It's not just a autobiography type thing. So it was kind of a mix between my life story up to that point, and the theme that came out of it was discipline. And, I feel like I do find meaning in life through discipline. So I wrote that book and I wanted to promote it. And, I know that Joe DeSena, the CEO and founder of Spartan, he's got a bunch of people that follow him and they like to do hard things. And there's a lot of synergy between the message I was saying and the message that he talks about a lot. And I knew Joe through a connection that I have, but Joe doesn't know me. So I thought it would be neat to kind of give him a copy of the book. But I wanted to do something more than just send him a book. And I decided to kind of incorporate the practice of discipline and combining also doing hard things as you'll hear that from Joe. And so I've decided, I lived in Austin, that I would just hand deliver my book to Joe in the Orlando area, but I would do it by riding my bike there and giving that to him. So it was 1,300 miles. I mapped it out. I'd never done anything like that before. I've done some 200-mile bike rides on my own. So that gave me some confidence that, I just got to do that several times in a row. I'll be all right.
Famous last words.
Yeah. So actually I had been training for it, and the distance really wasn't the issue. It was 1,300 miles. 1,275 miles of that was a headwind. I could not have picked, maybe I could have picked the worst time. I don't know. Maybe a hurricane. I didn't hit a hurricane. I had some rain on a couple days, but just the headwind was a mental thing that I'd never anticipated that. Now I wasn't going to not make it. The only thing that would have stopped me from making it is if somebody would have had me in a hospital bed. If I wasn't in a hospital bed, I was going to make it. I had budgeted almost a month to well, if it takes a month, I'm going to make it. But I had planned to do it in 9 days. And it actually ended up taking 11. So not too far off my plan. It was just the headwind was something that I had not prepared for. You cannot prepare for that, because it's actually quite hard to do a ride where the whole 100+ miles is into a headwind. So mentally it's very tough, but it was super gratifying getting there. I got to hand the book off to Joe, and I got to meet his family. My mom drove a support vehicle, so I got to be a lot closer to my mom, which was
So
really cool. And we stayed in hotels on the way out there. I'm not going to have my mom camping on the side of the road or anything like that. And, I had a dual responsibility, right? I was going to make it. I was going to ride my bike, but, I need to make sure my mom's okay. And so I probably spent quite a bit of mental energy on worrying about my mom pretty much constantly the whole trip. But we made it, she made it, and we're all safe when it was said and done. But it was quite the experience,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do something else again. I don't know when or for what reason, but even if there's not a reason, even if it is, can I do this? That's the reason for me to try.
Yeah, so just message Carey if you want him to bike to your house and hand deliver a book. He's got a new business. 1,300 miles. And that took, you said 11 days?
11 days is an average of about 120 miles a day. And, a couple of them were 160 miles. And those were closer to the beginning where I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is hard, but I got it. And then you get to a point, halfway through the trip, my nutrition plan fell apart. I'm still a little bit confused on exactly what happened, but I was getting so much heartburn that I'd prepared all this food, or sugar water, basically, for the ride, that I thought that
Yeah.
was affecting me. So I threw out
Mm,
gallons of nutrition, and I was winging it for the last half. So
unreal.
it made it even more difficult, but
Yeah. I've got to think too, like I know, like at least in ultra running, like the whole thing is like if you sit, you quit. Whenever you take a break, your body starts to immediately go into recovery. So I'd imagine after that many days on the bike, off the bike, on the bike, off the bike, like sleeping, I'm sure your body just starts to freak out a little bit, being like, when do we get a chance to recover? Because you've never done anything, not only that distance, but probably that distance with consecutive days, like that many mileage, just back to back to back to back.
no. I've done a couple days, and they were like 75 miles each for 2 days.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. And something that was interesting that was happened is my body was forcing me to try to shut down. It turns out when you do that over and over again, if your body isn't set for it, your body refuses to let your heart rate go up too high, and so you're forced to operate at a really low heart rate because your body's trying to protect yourself. So when I was doing it, I was like, wow, I'm in great shape. Look at my low heart rate. That has nothing, that's not because I was in great shape. It's because the body was like, you are not going to go above this heart rate. And it just made it harder, right? You only have so much energy. And
Mm,
so with the lower heart rate, you have to operate at a little bit lower level.
yeah. Man, that's such a fascinating story. I love that. And what's the name of the book again, in case folks want to listen to that or pick that up?
Find meaning through relentless discipline.
Okay. And if people put that into
Yeah.
AI or Google, they can
Google,
find it.
or it's on Amazon. It's paperback, it's ebook, it's an Audible. It's all the above.
Awesome. Man, that's such a good story. Okay, so let's jump back to the conference and the business real fast. So
Sure.
first, I would love to hear, there's what, maybe about 60 people in Vermont, and it's not an easy spot to get to. Like you either fly to Boston and drive 3 hours, or you fly to Albany, New York and drive 2 hours, or you've got to drive in from a location. So it's not a convenient, just quick airport Uber ride over. So I'm curious what brought you to the event and how did you hear about it?
So my mutual connection to Joe mentioned it to me, and he's very close with Joe. So Craig James, he's the founder of Dwell Optimal, and Craig and Joe were friends back in Wall Street days, and that's how I met Joe in the first place. And Craig knows that I'm also an avid AI supporter and user, and so it was just a combination of several things that align with me personally, with Joe, Spartan, AI, and so Craig made it possible for me to go to that. So that's kind of how I heard about it.
I love it. And then, so we had some great speakers there, right? All different varieties of perspectives and ideas and size of businesses and types of businesses. Do you feel like you brought anything back home with you that you're going to implement, or things that you're going to maybe just think about implementing from what you learned?
I think the big takeaway for me is that I do need to focus more on my AI mindset and energy and time on marketing. So that is my biggest takeaway. I don't think I specifically learned any specific techniques because I've been using AI so much that, and then part of the reason for that is the discussions were split, right? There was some general baseline, this is AI, and there were a lot of discussions about how not to use AI, and then other discussions about it was more, some of them were high. could you gain from using AI? And then there were a couple, including yours, presentation, where they were very, very practical on exactly how you use it. Like, how do you use the prompt? What do you put in the prompt? These are the examples of the things that you could get. So there was some of that, and a lot of that is what I've been using to automate and to. I mean, I'm a solopreneur, and there's only so much time, but there's so many things to get done, and
Mm,
some of that stuff just needs to be done with AI because AI can do it just fine.
yeah.
So
What
yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was a mixture of things, and I came away with what I do need to focus more on is the marketing side.
Yeah, that's great. And that's where I wish I had more time. I'm actually doing a couple webinars this coming week for Adapt or Die on it. But I think that's where there is such huge opportunity of taking like administrative marketing tasks. So then you get to focus more on like the strategy and the ideas and the relationships and not so much about, like if you've logged into Google AdWords or Meta lately and tried to set up complex campaigns, like just be prepared. Like it is nuts in there. And having a tool that can just take your ideas and actually do that work can save so much brain power. Like we're managing lots of ad campaigns and it's setting up very complicated targeting and structures and ad sets and all this stuff that would normally take, even if you knew what you were doing, it would take hours and still be a little stressful. But that's cool that you're jumping in. What would you tell someone that maybe would say, well, Carey, I'm not tech savvy, so I don't even want to do that. I'm just going to keep doing things the way I've always done them. What piece of advice would you give them?
Yeah, they're either going to get taken advantage of by somebody who says they can do, all the AI for them and they don't have to learn anything, or they're going to fall behind because they're not even going to use AI. And there's so many things you do in your business that are so much more complicated than AI. And you just have to get in and start using it. It is amazing how intuitive it is. And the thing about it is you can always ask AI how to use AI. Just ask AI how to do stuff and it will tell you. You can take somebody who's completely non-technical and you can just tell AI, I'm non-technical. Speak to me as if you're speaking to my grandmother who doesn't even have a computer. And it can do that. And it is addictive. It is addictive because if you want to learn something, you want to know anything, just ask it. And if it doesn't answer in a way that you understand, tell it. And then it will. And this still happens with me every day. Just this morning, I was having a conversation with AI about something. And I just said, like, I am so sick of your analogies. Stop giving me analogies. Just tell me what it is in the plain words. Don't give me words.
Yeah.
Describe the words.
Yeah.
And I still have to do that, right? But then as you use it more, you will begin to learn ways to help it remember those things that you've told it. And that is key. But you will not know how to do that in the beginning. But as you get to use it more and more, then you can help it develop a memory on how it works with you. And it just makes it so much more productive over time.
Yeah. Well said. So I'm almost hearing, and what I've said forever, even before the rise of AI, it's like, you've got a smartphone in your pocket, like whatever you put your energy to, you will figure out. So saying you're not tech savvy is no longer an excuse, but even to your point now, it's like, tell the thing you're using you're not tech savvy and it will untech itself. And you can even misspell words and talk like a third grader and it will still attempt to help you and meet you where you're at. You don't have to rise to the level of technicality the tool is. It will actually meet you where you are and fill in all the gaps for you, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think of AI versus social media. Honestly, I hate using social media. I don't use it. I don't like using it. It feels like a waste of time.
Yep, same.
And so if you want, though, if as a business owner, you want to maybe advertise on it or get on it, that's where the eyeballs are. And the problem is I don't want to learn TikTok. I don't want to learn these tools. I don't use them. And they're harder to use because it's not intuitive to me. And you can't say, TikTok, make yourself easier so I can understand it or whatever. On AI, you can do that. You can literally just say, explain it in easier terms and it'll do it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Well, my favorite thing to do now is have AI connect to web services and tools that I'm already using, and just use that as the like your main portal and dashboard. It's like, hey, can you just log in and do this for me and figure it out? So you get to focus. Again, this is what I love as business owners. We get to focus on the outcomes and the strategies. It's the what, not the how. And if we leverage AI to help figure out the how, it's be like, hey, this might sound absolutely crazy and it could be impossible, but this is what I want to do. Help me do this.
Hmm.
And I've done that before. And even like I've been in this space for 2 decades, something I thought was impossible. And I was at my wit's end and I was like, I'm just going to see what this thing says. And it fully built this enterprise level technology that I would have never in a million years thought I was just a prompt away from getting that started. So I think you'll agree, Carey, like you'd be shocked and surprised how much it can come to your rescue on almost anything digitally.
Yeah, I think so too. And well, I know so. If you start using it, you're going to be amazed at what it can do. Just and the other thing is, if you don't use it, then then unfortunately, what you're hearing from a lot of folks is this fear mongering about how dangerous it is, and
Mm,
the more you know, the more you can protect yourself and not take those steps. But just just start using it. Start using it, getting a little bit deeper, a little bit more information. How can I do this? And like you said, this is the outcome I want. You tell me how that needs to be done, and I'll walk you through it.
Carey, what if the robots come to get me? What if their eyes turn red and they show up at my doorstep?
It'll be a while for that.
It'll be a while. And the one thing I say kind of jokingly, but kind of serious too, it's like be nice to your robots. Like I even though they are machines, right? Just tell it thank you. Be like, this is great, thanks. Because what you're also doing it is you're training it for your preferences. You're training it on this is good and what you like, and it will favor that more than if you just take all the stuff from it and in your mind, you're like, cool, this is great. I'm gonna use it. Then I'm just gonna go on to the next thing. You're not really closing the loop on like, this is good. This is great. This makes me happy. This is bad. This is okay. So just telling it what you like and don't like will also help for future as it's like learning skills and learning you. It's getting smarter over time and you're building it. So just like your child or your pet, you're giving it positive affirmation of doing the right things.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be the first to admit though, I get very impatient when I'm talking with my AI. So but it's ultimately patient with me for sure. And I will say this, like there are limits to what it will remember depending on how you're using it. And I don't want to go into that now, but as you get more and more familiar with it, there are techniques that you use to help it learn, remember more. So you can't initially when you're just starting a chat session and you're chatting back and forth, it remembers most of the stuff that you say to it. And as you start using it to do jobs for you for your business, you do have to have a way to help it remember, things about your brand and your voice and other things and things never to do. And there are techniques and ways to do that which you don't need to know how to do. You can literally tell Claude, how can I get it so that you will remember this thing that I'm telling you? And it will come up with a way to do that for you. So,
Yeah. No, so smart. That's good. That's really good. Well, so what's one thing right now that you're doing in business that you're kind of stepping out into a little bit, maybe out of your comfort zone, you're adapting to, you're trying to get some better. I know you mentioned maybe using AI for marketing, but is that it? Or what's something maybe that you're doing right now that you're moving towards?
the thing that I need to start putting more effort in, particularly after the event, was I do need to start putting together probably some paid advertising to make sure it gets in front of the right people so that they understand what is Fellow Escapes and what are some of those trips that are coming up and might they be interested in those. I'm here locally in Austin, Texas. They've got a great writing community, and I'm connected pretty well with the community here. So they've all heard about it because I'll be passing out QR codes to everybody. But I do need to have a wider reach than that. So I'll be reaching out to bicycle groups across the U.S. and communicating with them and trying to share, the vision for Velo Escapes and the value proposition for them working with me for the trips that they want to go on.
Man, so good. I love that. And then final question. So if you were having maybe sitting down with coffee next to an entrepreneur that was thinking about like taking a jump or taking a leap, getting to the next thing, what is there any other advice you would give them from what you've learned so far in your journey? If you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's in anything that you want to be really great at or succeed at it, I think you need to be consistent. So consistency. And then you got to think about, well, how can I ensure that I'm consistent? And that may be different for most people, but for me, I found that to be consistent, you gotta like that thing that you're doing. So make sure that thing is part of the journey that you're on. Because if you love doing it, you're more likely to be consistent. And if you are consistent, I think that is the only way that you can get really lucky. Sure, people get lucky. But for the most part, when you think somebody got lucky, it wasn't luck. They were consistent behind the scenes for probably years or decades to make that happen. So consistency is the most important, I think.
Well said. I love that. One line I always like to use is consistency over intensity. You don't just show up once, drop a bomb, and make everything awesome. It's the consistency over time. So that's great, Carey.
Yep.
Well, guys, for everyone listening, you can learn more about Carey and explore his founder-led cycling trips at veloescapes.com, VELO. We'll include that link here along with information about his book, Define Meaning Through Relentless Discipline, in the show notes. And Carey, thank you for sharing your story, for joining me on the first episode of Adapt or Die.
Thank you, Brad. It has been
Super.
awesome.
It has been great. So if this conversation gave you guys an idea, make sure to not just save it, but act on it. Choose one thing you can adapt in your life or business. Take that first step today. And if you know someone who needs to hear Carey's story, send them this episode and follow Adapt or Die. And we also just launched our new website. We'll be putting this up. It's adaptordiehq.com. And we'll have some more interviews coming up. So Carey, thanks again, man. This is great.
Thank you, Brad.